The Silent Epidemic, Unveiling Professional Grief and Transforming Workplace Culture. Have you ever felt the weight of loss crushing your spirit, yet found yourself expected to perform as if nothing had happened? That suffocating pressure to compartmentalize your emotions, to leave your grief at the door when you step into the office? Today, we're going to challenge that notion. We're going to dive deep into a topic that's been swept under the rug for far too long: professional grief. I'm here to share with you some profound insights I've gained from a recent conversation with Edythe Gilbert, a visionary leader who's dedicated her life to revolutionizing how we approach loss and grief in the workplace. Edythe's work has touched countless lives, transforming organizational cultures and empowering individuals to embrace their humanity, even in professional settings. Her wisdom has the power to reshape our understanding of grief, resilience, and authenticity in the corporate world. Let's start with the sobering truth. Loss is universal. It doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care about your job title, your salary, or your position in the company. It affects us all, often when we least expect it. Yet, in our professional lives, we've been conditioned to hide our pain, to soldier on as if nothing has changed. But what if I told you that by doing so, we're not only hurting ourselves, but potentially our entire organization? Think back to a time when you experienced a significant loss. Perhaps it was the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or even the loss of a job. Remember the overwhelming emotion, the sadness, the anger, the confusion. Now, imagine having to go to work the next day and pretend everything was fine. Imagine having to lead a team meeting or make crucial decisions while carrying that emotional burden. It's not just difficult, it's nearly impossible. This is where Edythe's insights become invaluable. She's helped me understand that acknowledging loss, even in professional settings, isn't a sign of weakness. In fact, it's a crucial step towards creating a more supportive, empathetic, and ultimately more productive work environment. Let me share with you a powerful example that illustrates this point. There was a consulting firm specializing in executive coaching and change management. This team faced an incredibly challenging situation when their executive director was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Now, you might think that as professionals trained in grief counseling, they would have been well equipped to handle this situation, but the reality was far more complex and heart-wrenching. The team found themselves in an unprecedented position. They had to navigate their own grief while continuing to support their clients. It was a delicate balancing act between personal emotions and professional responsibilities. The challenge was ensuring that their emotional well-being didn't compromise the quality of their work. But more than that, they were grappling with the impending loss of a leader, a mentor, and a friend. So what did they do? They took a bold, courageous step. They implemented an ongoing ritual of remembrance and observance. They created a supportive environment where team members could openly express their emotions and share their grief. It wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't conventional in a professional setting, but the results were nothing short of remarkable. The team successfully managed their collective grief. They maintained their professional integrity and continued to provide high-quality support to their clients. But more than that, they set a precedent for handling similar situations in the future. They promoted a culture of empathy and support within their organization. They showed that it's possible to be both professional and human. This story highlights something crucial that Edythe emphasized in our conversation: the concept of collective grief in professional settings. You see, when loss occurs in a workplace, it's not just an individual experience. It ripples through the entire organization, affecting team dynamics and productivity. It's like a stone thrown into a pond. The impact spreads far beyond the initial point of contact. But here's the beautiful thing. When we acknowledge this collective grief, when we create spaces for shared mourning and support, we can turn a potentially destructive force into a unifying one. We can use our shared experience of loss to build stronger, more resilient teams. We can transform our pain into a catalyst for growth and deeper connection. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. This sounds great in theory, but how do we actually implement this in our workplaces? Well, that's where the power of authenticity comes in. And this brings me to another fascinating insight from my conversation with Edythe. She introduced me to the concept of the audacity of authenticity. It's a powerful idea that challenges us to be true to ourselves, even in professional settings, especially in professional settings. Because when we're authentic, when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we create space for others to do the same. Let me share another example that beautifully illustrates this point. There was a podcast episode that explored the transformative power of authenticity in business. It featured interviews with entrepreneurs who openly discussed their personal journeys with loss and how they managed their grief in professional settings. One of these entrepreneurs, let's call her Sarah, shared a particularly moving story. Sarah had lost her father just weeks before a crucial pitch meeting for her startup. She was devastated, barely able to function, let alone prepare for the meeting. But instead of canceling or trying to push through on her own, she decided to be honest with her team and the potential investors. Sarah opened the meeting by acknowledging her loss and the impact it was having on her. She shared how her father had always supported her entrepreneurial dreams and how she was determined to honor his memory by giving this pitch her all despite her grief. The room fell silent. You could feel the shift in energy. What could have been just another business meeting became a profound human moment. The result? Not only did Sarah secure the funding, but she also formed deeper, more meaningful relationships with her team and the investors. Her authenticity created a ripple effect, encouraging others to bring their whole selves to work. It challenged the notion that we need to compartmentalize our emotions and our work lives. But authenticity is just the beginning. Edythe also emphasized the importance of building resilience through shared experiences. This is particularly crucial when dealing with loss. You see, resilience isn't about toughing it out on your own. It's not about putting on a brave face and pretending everything's okay. True resilience is about leaning on your community, sharing your experiences, and learning from others who have walked similar paths. There was another inspiring story that beautifully illustrated this point. It featured interviews with successful Black executives and entrepreneurs who shared their strategies for building resilience and coping with loss. These leaders opened up about their challenges, their setbacks, and most importantly, how they overcame them. One executive, let's call him Marcus, shared how he had lost his mother to cancer just as his company was going through a critical expansion phase. The pressure to perform was immense and the grief was overwhelming. But instead of trying to handle it all on his own, Marcus decided to be open with his team about what he was going through. He created a support system within the company, encouraging open conversations about mental health and personal challenges. He instituted flexible working hours and bereavement leave policies that went beyond the standard. And most importantly, he led by example, showing that it's okay to take time to grieve, to seek help, and to prioritize mental health. The impact was profound. Not only did Marcus's company successfully navigate the expansion, but they also saw a significant increase in employee satisfaction and retention. By creating a culture of empathy and support, Marcus had inadvertently built a more resilient, more committed team. What struck me about these stories was the power of community. These leaders weren't just sharing their experiences. They were creating supportive networks where others could find strength and inspiration. They were demonstrating that it's okay to struggle, it's okay to grieve, and it's okay to ask for help. They were showing us that vulnerability, far from being a weakness, can be our greatest strength. This approach to dealing with loss, acknowledging it, being authentic about it, and building resilience through community, it's transformative. It has the power to change not just how we handle grief in our professional lives, but how we approach vulnerability and authenticity in all aspects of our lives. So where do we go from here? How do we take these insights and turn them into action? Well, that's where you come in. I want to challenge each and every one of you listening right now. Reflect on how you currently handle loss in your professional life. Consider how you can create a more supportive environment for yourself and your colleagues. It might feel daunting, but remember, it starts with small steps. Maybe it's initiating a conversation about loss and grief in your workplace. Maybe it's being a little more open about your own struggles, or maybe it's simply being a more empathetic listener when a colleague is going through a tough time. Whatever it is, I urge you to take that first step. Because when we create spaces where it's okay to be human, where it's okay to grieve, where it's okay to be vulnerable, we're not just helping ourselves, we're creating stronger, more resilient, and ultimately more successful organizations. But let's not stop there. I want to challenge you to think bigger. How can we as a society reshape our understanding of professional grief? How can we create workplaces that don't just tolerate human emotions, but embrace them as a source of strength and innovation? Imagine a world where companies have grief counselors on staff, not just for major tragedies, but as a regular resource for employees. Envision workplaces where taking a mental health day is as accepted as taking a sick day for a physical illness. Picture team meetings that start with a check-in on everyone's emotional well-being, not just their project progress. This isn't just a pipe dream. It's a necessary evolution in our professional culture. As we face increasing global challenges, from pandemics to climate change, the ability to navigate loss and build resilience will become even more crucial. By addressing professional grief head-on, we're not just improving individual lives. We're building more adaptable, more human-centric organizations that can thrive in an uncertain future. So I challenge you, be the change in your workplace. Start the conversation about professional grief. Share your own experiences. Listen to others. Create space for collective mourning and healing. Advocate for policies that support emotional well-being. Lead with authenticity and vulnerability. Remember, every time you acknowledge your own humanity in a professional setting, you're giving others permission to do the same. Every time you support a grieving colleague, you're contributing to a culture of empathy and resilience. Every time you choose authenticity over pretense, you're helping to reshape our collective understanding of what it means to be a professional in the 21st century. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this thought. Loss is an inevitable part of life. It's painful, it's challenging, but it's also an opportunity for growth and connection. By acknowledging our losses, by being authentic in our grief, and by supporting each other through difficult times, we can transform our workplaces and our lives. We have the power to create a world where vulnerability is seen as strength, where authenticity is celebrated, and where loss, while still painful, becomes a little bit easier to bear. A world where we don't leave our humanity at the office door, but bring our whole selves to work, grief and all. The journey starts with you. Right here, right now. Are you ready to be the catalyst for change in your workplace? Are you prepared to challenge the status quo and lead with empathy and authenticity? The choice is yours. And remember, in making that choice, you're not just changing your own life, you're potentially changing the lives of everyone around you. Thank you for listening. Now let's go out there and create workplaces and communities where we can all thrive, even in the face of loss. Together, we can turn the tide on professional grief and build a more compassionate, resilient, and ultimately more successful professional world. The time for change is now. Will you answer the call?